Today, I will make an order under Section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998, preventing the Gender Recognition Reform Scotland Bill from proceeding to royal assent. Mr. Speaker, I have not taken this decision lightly. The Government has looked closely at the potential impact of the bill, and I have considered all relevant policy and operational implications together with the Minister for Women and Equalities. And it is our assessment that the bill would have a serious adverse impact, among other things, on the operation of the Equality Act 2010. Those adverse effects include impacts on the operation of single-sex clubs, associations and schools, and protections such as equal pay. The Government shares the concerns of many members of the public and civic society groups regarding the potential impact of the bill on women and girls. The bill also risks creating significant complications from having two different gender recognition regimes in the UK and allowing more fraudulent or bad faith applications. The Government is today publishing a full statement of reasons alongside the order, which will set in full the adverse effects the Government is concerned about. I would like to address the claims put forward by those who would seek to politicise this decision and claim that this is some kind of constitutional outrage. And you can hear them, Mr. Speaker, you can hear them. The Section 35 power was included in the Scotland Act, which established the Scottish Parliament. This is the first time the power has been exercised, and I acknowledge that this is a significant decision. This is not about preventing the Scottish Parliament from legislating on devolved matters, but about ensuring that we do not have legal frameworks in one part of the United Kingdom which have adverse effects on reserved matters. And we should be clear that this is absolutely not about the United Kingdom Government being able to veto Scottish Parliament legislation whenever it chooses, as some have implied. The power can only be exercised on specific grounds, and the fact that this is the first time it has been necessary to exercise the power in almost 25 years of devolution emphasises that it is not a power to be used lightly.
I want to say right from the start tonight of this live stream, if I thought for 1 second that this piece of legislation was going to cause my daughter or my lady wife to be in danger in any way, then I would be shouting about it very loud as well. I would. Some may call me ignorant to the truth on this, but I challenge back, as I still have to find the issues that the anti-GRR protesters are saying are contained within this bill. Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you are well. Welcome to that Indy show. It is, what day is it? It is Tuesday, the 17th of January 2023. And I'm exhausted. I didn't get much sleep last night. I spent a lot of time looking at stuff for today and everything. So let's just get started. I've got a ton of stuff to get through, a ton of reading, a ton of looking at stuff. So I will come into the chat box and speak about your comments. Apologies if I don't answer everybody, but let me get through the initial stages right at the start, my disclaimers and stuff like that, the things that I usually do. So we're recording tonight's live for the security and integrity of the message and the ability to upload and share via other platforms. I usually start off with a context setting for my lives to explain the point of view from where my discussion is coming from. It's becoming far easier to do this now as Westminster is becoming more and more active in circumventing Scottish democracy. First, we have a democratic mandate. We have a democratic mandate in Scotland within our Parliament for pro-independence parties that the Scottish electorate voted for. But we see a denial of this by Anglo-British nationalist elected officials and their self-destructive believing in Brexit sycophantic cult-like followers. Second, we have on the record that this alleged union of equals is genuinely not a union of equals due to the Supreme Court's verdict that Scotland does not have the legal competency to legislate to revisit its relationship with the union in the form of an independence referendum. And now we have a never used before colonial governor's clause. That's what the Tories called it a way back 20 years ago, when it was even a wee bit further, when it was put together in 1998. They called it the governor's clause. You know, So that's within the Scotland Act and has allowed Westminster, specifically one man and one man alone through discussion, Alistair Jack, to prevent a progressive piece of legislation from receiving royal assent and becoming law. Albeit the Gender Recognition and Reform Bill just now in Scotland may have been controversial, but it's still within the competency of Holyrood to pursue, as we will see throughout tonight. And the protesters that are against the GRRA celebrate this mock victory because they do not recognise the veil of dystopia that's starting to... Oh my god, my cat's just jumped out of nowhere and spoiled my whole thing. Cats! Anyway, and the protesters against the GRRB celebrate this mock victory, and they don't recognise the veil of dystopia that is starting to cast a shadow over Scotland.
My name's Robert, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
Robert was more than angry about this. I was having conversations with him in texts. If you're in the chat, Robert, give us a thumbs up, brother. Okay, honest to God, I was really angry last night. I couldn't do my live last night at all. Could not do it at all, one bit. It was crazy. Let's have a quick look for our first look to see who's in the chat. Hi, Kieran, thank you very much. Kimru, Aaron, Morgan, so glad to have you here. Where is it? Dan's in the house. I still have my post-it note. How dare you say that I don't have it, Kieran? Margaret, how are you, Max? How are you? It's so nice to have you here. Maggie is a friend of mine from Instagram and is probably been to more marches for independence than anybody else that I know. It's so nice to have you here. It really, really, really is. And Margaret, listen, Nightbot is, it doesn't like people putting things like flags and things up. It's my automatic bot that looks after things. I need to take it off. I really do, but it's you know, people have fun with it, trying to wind it up. But thank you for the flags and the fists. I said hi, Morgan. Rin's here. Who else? Blackfur. Hi, Blackfur. Robert is here. Thank you for the thumbs up. You were angry last night, mate, for all this. I could feel the empathy through it all. And there's Patrick as well. Did I say hi to Rin? Yeah. I know. It's an awful thing. We have so much to get through tonight, and I am not going to stop. But it could run over midnight tonight for everything. I've got like 7 videos to show you and a lot of discussion. Okay, and we're going to start off with. First of all, let me just pop Robert's little video in there. If you ever want to hear Robert's story, by the way, this is Robert Scrivenger that's in the chat. Previous no voter, now a yes voter. That little link takes to his interview and goes through his story. I was privileged enough to spend time with him and listen to his story to understand it, how he felt about everything. Very important tool for people to use in helping convince people to vote yes. Okay, we're going to start off tonight with a statement from stonewall.org regarding the blocking of the GRR bill by the section 35. This is the link to what I'm about to read you. Okay, or I'm going to sneeze. I can feel a sneeze up here. There we go. Right. Okay, here we go. We are saddened that the Prime Minister has decided to block the implementation of the Scottish Gender Recognition Reform Bill through an order under Section 35 of the Scotland Act for the first time in the history of devolution. This is a piece of legislation that simply seeks to make the process for legally recognising a trans man or a trans woman's gender more respectful and straightforward. Scotland's bill aligns it with leading international practice endorsed by the United Nations and adopted by 30 other countries, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and most of the United States of America. Trans people only make up 0.5% of our population, and trans men and women who can benefit from the Gender Recognition Reform Bill is only 0.2% of it. Trans people are at high risk of experiencing hate crime. They wait years and years to get their first appointment with healthcare specialists that can support their transition. Trans children are bullied in our schools. Trans adults are bullied in their workplaces. The UK government should be focused on developing and implementing a strategy that improves the lives of all LGBTQ plus people, including trans people, not causing them more harm. Despite being a small population, trans people live in every community in the UK. They are our classmates, our colleagues, our friends and our family. Yet today's decision by the Prime Minister treats trans people as a threat to be contained, not citizens to be respected. 20 years on from the repeal of Section 28, the Prime Minister will retoxify his party by repeating historic mistakes for LGBTQ plus people. This is out of step with the inclusive values of modern Britain. The Gender Recognition Reform Bill was passed by a decisive majority of MSPs, having received more extensive scrutiny than any other legislation in the Scottish Parliament's history. It does not interact with the Equality Act, clarified by successful amendments from Scottish Labour MSP, and contains more safeguards than the UK Gender Recognition Act, thanks to a successful amendment by a Scottish Tory MSP. The concerns cited by the Prime Minister have been addressed by Scottish politicians from across all parties up here. This is the nuclear option. This is the only time that a Section 35 of the Scotland Act has been used since 1998 in an unprecedented move which significantly undermines the devolution settlement and will unlock a constitutional and diplomatic fight. This is now a constitutional matter between the UK government and the Scottish government. It is a matter of grave and profound regret that the Prime Minister has allowed trans people's lives to be used as a political football. This is not governing with compassion. These are not the actions of a government that can stand on the international stage as a credible defender of the LGBTQ plus rights. We hope that the legal process concludes swiftly and the governments of the UK focus their attention on positive strategies for the LGBTQ plus communities to thrive. I found that an incredibly powerful statement by Stonewall. Just so you know, Stonewall stand for lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, questioning, ace, etc. people everywhere. They imagine a world where LGBTQ plus people are free to be themselves and can live their lives to the full. And you can find our website in this little link. Right. Wait a minute. Here. Worth a look. Definitely worth a look. So what do you think of what there was said there just now? Imagine being behind the colonies. Hi Kimru, how are you? If people are going to use the toilet as an argument, wait till we get onto the toilets, Rin. Wait till we get onto the toilets. Excuse me. Morgan is saying thing is disabled toilet. Yeah. Okay. Blocking up power transphobia. Yeah, I think it will. I think it will empower a bit of transphobia. For the short term and possibly quietly in the long term as well. Right. Okay. Briefly moving on. So if you thought that Holyrood had any true power within the devolved context, then you've probably received an abrupt wake-up call over the past 24 hours. We don't have any power, or so it seems, and this angers me. Holyrood has been made out to be a cardboard cutout of a parliament due to the simple fact that Westminster can use a clause within the Scotland Act 1998 to prevent a piece of legislation from receiving royal assent. Now, I have this. Hold on a wee second. Let me bring up the correct bit here, and we will bring up. Here we go. Right. So this is section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998. Okay, so let's have a quick read through it and I will interpret it to the best of my ability. So if a bill, that is like something that's before a law, before it becomes a law, contains provisions which the Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe would be incompatible with any international obligations. Of course, this bill has massive international obligations, or the interests of defence. Are trans people a threat to the islands of Great Britain? Wow. Or national security. Are you all spies? Is every trans person I know a spy? Morgan, are you a spy? Are you naughty? Well, you are, but are you a spy? Okay, that's section A. If a bill contains provisions which make modifications of a law as it applies to reserved matters and which the Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe would have an adverse effect on the operation of the law it is applied to reserved matters. No, and no, and no. Okay, he may make an order prohibiting the presiding officer from submitting the bill to royal assent, which is what's happened. The order must identify the bill and the provision, so it must say what it is and what's wrong with it. And we're going to come on to what's wrong with it in a little while. The order be made at any time during the period of 4 weeks, beginning with the passing of the bill, any period of 4 weeks beginning with any approval of the bill in accordance with standing orders, blah, blah, blah. If a reference is made in relation to the bill, the period of 4 weeks beginning with the reference. Okay, so they don't need to say basically they're going to use a section 35, but you know what, it would be the polite thing to say, hey, there's something wrong with the legislation. Why don't we sit down and have a chat about it so we can understand it better? You know, that's kind of probably the more realistic thing to do about it. Right. So, yeah, that's the section 35. We'll look at it again later on. I'll bring it up in context again later on about it. And I've got the 5 reasons as well in layman's terms for why Westminster has done this, okay? So please understand the use of a section 35 now has a lawful precedent for use in limiting the creation of Scottish law. I'm going to ask you all something. Do you feel confident that Westminster will not do this again? I don't. We don't use the section 35 option lightly, says Alistair Union Jack. It's utter nonsense. At no stage in the creation of this bill was it even remotely suggested that a section 35 would be used to stop it moving to royal assent. If there were the issue that would have been suggested in Alistair Jack's statements, which we'll read in a minute, then why didn't our good neighbours in union, you know, our friends in Westminster, the ones that are always saying we're in a union of equals, our buddies, our people that want to, see and they want to deliver for the Scottish people, these wonderful politicians that are doing the most amazing positive things. It's a joke, really, at the end of the day. Absolutely a joke. So it was never discussed that they would use a section 35. If there was an issue that had suggested that in Alistair Jack's statement, then why didn't our good neighbours, our union people, our friends, down in Westminster, not choose a different route in order to discuss the issues that they state this bill has? Now, Nicola Sturgeon, lover or hater, kind of sums up quite a good wee thing here. She was interviewed at a press conference not long before this decision was made. So have a wee watch of this.
So Keir Starmer is the latest person to express concerns about the Scottish Parliament's gender legislation. Stephen Flynn this morning describing it as an outrage if that is blocked. Is it really an outrage if people use the established mechanism to try to resolve potential conflict in the law set out in the Scotland Act 1998?
Yes, I think it would be an outrage. You refer to established procedures, of course, in respect of Section 35 of the Scotland Act, a procedure that has not been used in almost a quarter of a century of the existence of the Scottish Parliament. In my view, There are no grounds to challenge this legislation. It is within the competence of the Scottish Parliament. It doesn't affect the operation of the Equality Act, and it was passed by an overwhelming majority of the Scottish Parliament after very lengthy and very intense scrutiny by MSPs of all parties represented in the Parliament. So if there is a decision to challenge, then in my view it will be quite simply a political decision, and I think it will be using trans people, already one of the most vulnerable, stigmatised groups in our society, as a political weapon, and I think that will be unconscionable and indefensible and really quite disgraceful. There is a bigger issue of principle here, and I'll come on to Keir Starmer's comments in this context, and that issue of principle is the right of the Scottish Parliament to legislate within its areas of competence, and if we see a challenge this week, then we will be seeing yet more evidence from this UK government of complete contempt for the Scottish Parliament and for devolution in principle. And I would say to anyone who might welcome that because they disagree with this particular piece of legislation, if the UK government is able to normalise action to block legislation democratically passed by the Scottish Parliament within our areas of competence on this issue, then that will embolden them to look to do it on other issues, and we will be on a very, very slippery slope indeed. So I think it is that serious, and I think the import and significance of this would go beyond the particular subject matter of the legislation. Finally, on this issue on Keir Starmer, I start to wonder, and I suspect I'm not the only one who starts to wonder, if there is anything Keir Starmer is willing to stand up and be counted on in the face of Tory attacks. I don't think the UK needs a pay limitation of this Tory government. It needs an alternative to this Tory government. But on this particular issue, of course, this is legislation that was scrutinised and voted for by Keir Starmer's own party in the Scottish Parliament. So he'd be showing, if he backed any move by the government to block this, he'd be showing utter contempt for his own Scottish party as well as the Scottish Parliament. So we'll see what happens this week, but there is no justification whatsoever for the action that is being talked about.
She's pretty right there, eh? That was filmed before the whole craziness of what's going on. I've just realised I've got 17 people watching just now. That's the most I've ever had on YouTube. So welcome to everybody that's hiding, not in the chat just now, and everybody that's new, the new names like, hi Chris, how are you? And yes, Chris, I've seen the RISHI interview. It was amazing. I've actually made a video with it and some commentary on the channel here as well. It's really, really good. Yeah, I've never seen anybody be so badly ripped by a reporter either. He wasn't happy about that, was he? You're welcome to go and share anything that's on here, guys, for, to put that out there. I'm quite happy for people to do it. What's else? Robert's saying, all that's going to result here is the Scottish Government taking this to court, which they're entitled to do, and everything getting bogged down in a legal process, and the victims of the trans community, absolutely. It's crazy. But let's have a quick look at what the GRR, why it's received so much negative attention from small groups. When I say small groups, they seemed relatively small outside that, the Holyrood last week. So apparently the Gender Recognition Reform Bill will allow men to say that they're women to access women-only spaces. We'll talk about that in a minute. Apparently, it allows men identifying as women, if receiving a jail sentence, to move to a women-only jail. Apparently, it will allow 16-year-old boys to identify as a 16-year-old girl to obtain access to changing facilities at school. Apparently, all trans folk are paedophiles and a danger to our children. Well, that is what one protester outside Holyrood said last week. Now, I'm going to say right now, this video may anger and trigger some of you, so be prepared.
It's
that was a seriously triggering video with the bad dancing. It's unbelievable. But the serious part is that there is absolute proof of an adult turning round and falsely accusing the trans community of all being pedos that do terrible things to children. I was outraged when I saw that video. I can laugh about it now because it's like, holy shit, who behaves like that? I mean, who really behaves like that? It was a disgrace, to be perfectly honest, and I was embarrassed for that poor lady because she has been immortalised now as a bit of an idiot, to be perfectly honest. Kind of awful. But this is what we're up against. It's barbaric ignorance. But that ignorance calling trans people pedos is truly disgusting. But is there any truth in it? Okay. Kathleen from TikTok, one of my friends, did a little look at the numbers on this just to put that particular point forward. And we'll comment on it after we have had a wee look at it.
Let's talk about the transgender bill that has been blocked by Westminster. A lot of people are concerned that the bill would put women and children at risk. So, I've got some numbers for you. Roughly 2.69% of the population are child abusers. 2.69% of the male population in Scotland is 27,000. 27,000 men in our country are child abusers. Now, 0.5% of the population are transgender. Roughly half of that are transgender women. Now, if we do 2.69% of the 0.25% that are transgender women, the outcome is 216. So let's compare those numbers again. There are potentially 216 child abusers that are transgender. There are 27,000 men that are child abusers. I'm hoping you know what the infill word is. So, stop skirting around the issue. You don't care about women's rights and you don't care about children and protecting children because you're focusing on the wrong demographic of people. Done.
Dun, 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 dun. Yep, I just noticed there just now that the volume on that was a little bit higher for video 4 on the channel there, so apologies for that. But the point Kathleen's making there is, you know something, at the end of the day, we're all not perfect, okay? There are some horrible people in every social sphere. There are people that will abuse children, abuse women, abuse men, abuse animals, okay? And the cis population, being bigger, will have a greater amount in them, and the transgender will obviously have a smaller amount of them. But the point being is, right, we do have people in all walks of life that are abusers. But that doesn't mean that we label all men as abusers. It doesn't mean that we label all trans as abusers, all gays as abusers. It just doesn't compute in my head. We just have to deal with these people that are abusers case by case, and that is the sensible way of actually dealing with it all. But it was a very good video there from Kathleen. The facts and figures were put together by a friend of hers, and she performed it and executed it perfectly. Very proud of her. I don't want to sound condescending. I did leave a message and ask her if I could use it, and she said, aye, of course, but I think she's out tonight. I don't know whether she's in the chat. But she said I could use it. She did say that she would try to get on tonight. But yeah, right, I said right at the start of the show tonight that if I thought for 1 second that this piece of legislation was going to cause my daughter or lady wife to be in any danger, then I would have a different point of view. I'd be shouting very loud about it. But we're going to go back and look at the apparentlys that I mentioned earlier. So apparently this bill allows men to say they're women to access women-only spaces. It does not. There's not a single clause within this Act that states this the case. Oh, but wait, Mo, it's implied. Well, no, show me where it's implied. It's not the case. But men will do this. Will they? What, go through 3 months of living as a woman legally, declare that they're a woman and register this on their birth certificate to receive a gender recognition certificate just to access women-only spaces? No. Let's be clear on this. If a predatory man wanted to cause harm to a woman in women-only spaces, they would do it. They're not going to go through that rigmarole for doing it. And then there are many different pieces of legislation that cover causing harm to anyone, regardless whether you're a female, a male, a trans. You know, there are laws of assault and grievous bodily harm and all sorts of other things. We live them in our lives daily. But let me ask you, what about public swimming pools? They have family changing areas that both men and women have access to. So does the sign of family changing protect children and families from a predatory man? It must do, because I don't see anyone protesting as hard against this as they do for sanctioned women's only spaces. It's crazy. What about men cleaners in toilets? You know, where I work, they'll put a sign on the door and they're trained to ask if they want to leave, or they just politely leave. But, you know, do they get jobs as cleaners to be predatory? I don't think so, you know. Right, so apparently it allows men identifying as women, if receiving a jail sentence, to go to a women's only jail. Not true. It's done on a case-by-case it's done basically on a case-by-case basis by the prison service. And let's be clear on this again. There is no reference in the Act to allowing men identifying as a woman to enter into a female-only prison. Now, I'm not saying that it's a perfect system, because at the end of the day, there has been mistakes made. But the majority of the time they get it right. But the times that they've made mistakes, it's horrendous, but they have to be dealt with. And when mistakes in such things like this are made, whether it be sending a man that identifies as a woman that's still technically a man to a female prison, and something terrible happens in that prison, obviously things need to be tightened up. I am not justifying this in any manner or form. I think that it was terrible that things have happened. I really do. But we need to learn from it and tighten up the processes and procedures. All that, though, is way above my pay grade as a normal civilian just talking about it. But I am allowed to talk about it. So apparently as well, it will allow 16-year-old boys to identify as a 16-year-old girl to obtain access to changing facilities at the schools. Laughable. Can you imagine a 16-year-old predatory teenager going through the process to do just this? I just can't imagine that. I can imagine a sincere trans 16-year-old going through this, but not for predatory, perverted reasons. You know, what it does allow is the age of deciding upon transitioning to be 16 years of age. Now, some people might say that's too young, all right? And I can understand that, but let's have a wee look at what 16-year-olds can do presently. They can leave school. They can leave home, they can get married, they can have sex, they can obtain their national insurance number and work full time. They can apply for their own passport without parental consent. They can actually drink in moderation. Did you know that? You know, when they're visiting a restaurant with somebody of drinking age, they can enjoy a beverage with their meal. That's down to the restaurant, but it's in Scottish law that they can do that. They can also join the army. They can buy a pet, as in a proper pet. Okay, they can get a piercing. They can drive a tractor at 16, pilot a glider, change their name by deed poll, register as a blood donor, work as a street trader, sell scrap metal, and in Scotland they can register to vote. Yeah, join the army too, Chris. Absolutely. So, these are many different serious life decisions that can be made by 16-year-olds, but according to certain individuals, the age of consent to choose your own sex and gender is outside their control, even though They probably know themselves the best. Mad. So apparently all trans are paedophiles and a danger to our children. Now, the only danger to our children that trans people are is teaching them the time warp incorrectly. But let's sum up this segment with this.
You would think 6 years, multiple consultations, countless hours of debating, people would know what the Gender Recognition Reform Bill does. Yet I still get stupid comments like this on the daily. The Gender Recognition Reform Bill does not change how trans prisoners are allocated to facilities. Case-by-case basis, prison service decides that's not changed. The Gender Recognition Reform Bill also does not allow men to pretend to be trans to go into women's toilets. Men could do that before the bill was passed. Men don't even need to pretend to be trans to walk into women's toilets. We do not have bouncers on every women's toilet door going, birth certificate, if there's not got an F in it, you're not getting in. It's just not how it works. Please go and read the bill, educate yourself, and get the fuck off my page.
I love Ellie Glasgow. She is absolutely amazing. You'll find her on TikTok. I follow her, she follows me, but she's got some really good things to say. But that was by far my favourite video from all this. Right, so just purely out of the sake of interest, if anybody is a bit of a boffin and wants to spend an hour or so digesting the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, that is the PDF sitting there in the chat. Okay, let's move on with the travesty of democracy thing. I suppose the right thing to do is take a look at the official statements that and the reasons the UK government has used a Section 35. So very briefly, let me bring up the Section 35 thing again, just to remind us all. The Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe that it would be incompatible with international obligations or the interests of defence or national security, or if the bill contains provisions which makes modifications of a law as it applies to reserved matters, and which a Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe would have an adverse effect on the operation of law if it applies to reserved matters. Okay, so basically that's the sort of things that we're kind of looking for. And you know what? It's quite interesting to actually read the 5 points. So the stuff I'm taking from just now is from an article in the National, because the whole statement refers to different areas of different laws, and there's no point in sitting here actually talking about them. So the first point was administration of taxes and benefits. The UK government says there's a number of areas which the dual system would have serious and potentially unimaginable consequences. Unmanageable, not unimaginable consequences on the operation of the law. The most notable example is the administration of tax benefit and state pensions, which are managed by integrated systems across the UK that span reserved and devolved functions, operating for both the UK and Scottish Government. Existing IT infrastructure only allows one legal sex on any record and cannot change the marker for a 16 or 17-year-olds. Those responsible for the systems consider that it may be unmanageable, even with considerable time and expense, to build system capability to manage a dual identity for the same individuals if someone's legal sex could be different in Scots law from the law of England and Wales. A computer glitch then. So just because we can't actually put somebody's gender or sex, whatever we're calling it, into the framework of taxation and benefits means that that's more important than the mental well-being of these people. For fuck's sake, I'm sorry, it's a sweary night. Okay, it's past the threshold, I'm going to swear, alright? But wow, that's kind of like a bit lame. Technical glitch, we can't put it on a bit of paper there. Okay, there's implications that you can't say that that's the case. But if banks can do it, Morgan, please tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, did you manage to change your bank account to doing something? I mean, really? Are you telling me they can't go back and change these things? That, I mean, there must be a way that they can do it, you know. But I know we were talking last night about it, you know. Right, overseas citizens is the next thing. The statement says the Gender Reform Bill will create a diverging system for overseas citizens obtaining GRCs between Scotland and the rest of the UK, as the process in Scotland will allow for any overseas GRC holder to automatically attain a Scottish GRC unless it manifestly contrary to the public policy. This would potentially lead to overseas citizens in the UK from countries or territories not on the approved list favouring applying for Scottish GRCs. So another reason for our own citizens here is because they're afraid that people will come across who already have a GRC and obtain a Scottish GRC. What? I don't see this overlapping in reserved areas as of yet. I really don't. Okay. Protected characteristic of sex. Another reason given is that the change in how a GRC can be obtained in Scotland will affect the circumstances in which a person can change their protected characteristic of sex under the 2010 Act. I think it's at the 2010 Act, the Equality Act. Expands the category of people who will be regarded as women under that Act. The statement says it will no longer be a biological woman or a woman aged 18 or over that has a GRC as a result of having diagnosed medical condition and has 2 years lived experience. It will, in Scots law, be a biological woman or a person aged 16 or over who is self-identified as a woman for 6 or 9 months. This is a substantive change to what a man or a woman is for purposes of the 2010 Equality Act. So the change of that, okay, is the problem. But the whole protections of the Equality Act. So hold on, are they saying that a trans woman, a man becoming a woman, has less rights under the Equality Act as a cis woman? That's what that says to me. You know, the Equality Act is for people who are not trans. You know, am I picking that up wrong? Please tell me in the chat. Let me bring up the chat box just now. Please tell me if I'm misunderstanding that that's what that looks like, because that is what that looks like to me, straight up. That, you know, well, you know, it's going to be different. We're going to have 16-year-olds that are going to be, you know, identifying as women, but they're not as important as real women. Okay, so they're not going to have the same conditions as in the Equality Act. You know, that is not overlapping into reserved matters, that's interpretation. You know, okay, next little spot, open to abuse and malicious actors. What's a malicious actor? Is that somebody that played Darth Vader? I don't know. The Secretary of State of Scotland says he does not believe the bill has sufficient safeguards to mitigate the risk of fraudulent and/or malign applications, and believes that the reform system will be open to abuse by malicious actors. Oh, people pretending to be trans for nefarious purposes. Yes, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to sit there and they're going to watch their victim and think, I can get into their spaces by pretending to be one of them. Okay, so I'm going to be a woman. I identify as a woman now. 3 months pass. I'm going to change this and get a GRC and do a legal declaration of my thing now. No, there is no safeguards in place for that. Actually, there really is. It's a criminal offence to do that. Did they mention that in this? Did they? No. But if you see the bill that I put the link in, if you go into there and do Control F and type criminal or sentencing or fine, you will actually find the part that says that it's a criminal act to do such things. So malicious actors will go to jail for the maximum of 2 years, okay? And they won't be put in a female prison, okay, by the courts. They're more likely to end up in a male prison, as a result of that, regardless, because the prison people will decide. I mean, they might go to a women's prison if that's the case, but I don't think they will. Oh, incidentally as well, anybody that has any form of sexual note on their file from the government that says they're a naughty person, if they're on any registers or they've had anything that's done before, they don't even get a chance to be this. You know that? Interesting, that, eh? Okay. Equal pay. The UK government says issues may arise infrequently but could be significant. There is the most oxymoron statement I have ever heard in my life. The UK government says issues may arise infrequently but could be significant. What? So, is that them admitting to women get less pay than men? It could be, eh? That's brilliant. What a bunch of dicks. Okay, a full GRC has the effect of changing the sex that person has as a protected characteristics for the purpose of the 2010 Act, meaning that transgender women with a GRC are legally considered as female claimants and comparators, and transgender male are male claimants and comparators, the statement says. Where an equal pay claim is brought by a claimant with GRC or comparator is used in the claim, an individual may have been treated as the opposite of their current legal sex. Why? Would it not just take like a quick look at the certificate and understanding? Would it not be up to the individual, like the lawyers that would be involved, to ensure that it would be done properly? So when they say issues may arise infrequently but could be significant, so again they're turning around and saying, do you know what? If there's an equal pay claim, if we're not too careful, this could cause problems. Is that more important than the mental well-being of trans people? Is it really more important? Okay, could we not just rely on the people who are involved in the process of equal pay, if there's an equal pay dispute? Could we not just rely on them to do the right thing? And if they don't do the right thing, could we not sue their asses? Like we do anyway if they make a friggin' mistake. I don't know. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? This is not me directing this at the anti-trans people or the pro-women's right people. This is me just having this as a fly on the wall look at the reasons, and so far the reasons are bullshit. They really, really are. Right, I think that's it for that one. So listen, over the next couple of days, right, you are going to see a serious amount of scrutiny of this particular statement. I'm going to stick I think this is the full statement. Boom. That is the full statement sitting in the chat as well. If anybody wants to go and read the legalese of it, it's not as easy to go through as what I just went through there, but it is there for anybody to look at it. I'll stick them into the notes of this live as well, and the description, I'll try and do that tonight. Okay, so over the next couple of days there will be a serious amount of scrutiny by the Scottish Government regarding the statement. Their civil servants and experts will dissect this and no doubtably will have some sort of public discussion, or there'll be something out there for it all. So I just want to quickly move on very briefly to a question that somebody asked me at work today. So, can Scotland actually legislate for such a bill? Yeah, we totally can. It's right there. So here is the section in the Scotland Act 1998. Section 1.12 says the Scottish Parliament has the power to legislate on a wide range of matters devolved to including most aspects of civil and criminal justice, health, did I say health? Education, local government, transport, housing and elements of taxation and social security. So clearly it appears that yes we can. However, the UK government has taken umbrage with this piece of legislation and come up with, from what we can see from my initial reading of this statement, lame excuses to stop this bill receiving royal assent, which, if you go back to what Nicola Sturgeon said, that stopping this bill is not going to be for the proper purposes, if there is a proper purpose for a Section 35, it's going to be for political reasons. And it's becoming a little bit more apparent as we go through this that is the actual case. Again, I'm going to say that Westminster has access to this legislation at all stages. They do. Okay, it's not like there's anything hidden. And it would have known its content, known its purposes, and understood how contentious some people might find it. And at any stage, they could have discussed this at any time, expressed concerns under various different sort of policies that are in place in the Scotland Act 1998, to be able to turn around and say, wait a minute, that is overlapping with a reserved thing. Do you remember when they blocked when we wanted to enshrine children's rights in the same way as the United Nations does with the UN Charter for Children? And they stopped us doing that because it had overlapping circles with what we wanted to do with reserved matters. Why the fuck did they not do that here? Okay, well, they didn't need to use a Section 35. Why the fuck did they not do that here? That's how angry I am about this, okay? They've done it before with other things. Why didn't they do that here? Because this is about political flexing with the power that they've got to set a precedent. Listen, that's at the end, but that's what we're talking about, okay? It's just political flexing, in my opinion. Calm down, Mo. Take some coffee. So the times that they were actually involved with the discussions, because they were involved with discussions on this, they appeared very silent about their concerns that they could have raised, and their the reasons now for using a Section 35. So why didn't they say back then, listen, if you don't fix this, we could use a Section 35? Would that not have been the right thing to do? I don't know. Is that the case?
My name is Hero, and I have a question for you. Are you yes yet?
Hero's a good friend of mine. He is a German national, lived in Manchester, and moved to Scotland. He's now an absolute campaigner for independence, and he pops on from time to time, and I love him to pieces. He's a good guy. Anybody that's made the jingles here that I play, I've had personal interaction with. They're good people for all. We're going to stop for a quick break and look at the chat window, because I've been through an awful lot there just now. So let's scroll back a wee bit. Let's put the chat up on the screen as well. There we go. Okay. Hi Grant, how are you? Hope you're good, brother. Hope you're still there. I didn't realise that you were here. The thing is, today kids, teens are more accepting of the LGBT community and so much more. Where does the UK government get off saying what a 16-year-old can do? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Wayne's making us proud, Kimru. 16 is a good age for someone to make a permanent decision with regards on how they will live. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Chris. Equality Act, but you're not actually equal. Very true. It may well as well be called the cis quality. We'll call it the Cis Quality Act. You're right. It's true. If you can gamble and have sex, marry someone, then you can definitely know you're trans. Ah, man. Kieran, you're so right. Jalen fine. Grant saying a man pretending to woman to go into the women's loo. The mentality of people who think these things up. Watch too many movies. They watch shit movies, Grant. They don't watch anything that's remotely good. You know, they need to be watching better things. The Queen of Turf, J.K. Rowling, wrote about a man pretending to be a woman to assault women. Let that sink in. I'm going to let it sink in. She did what? That's shocking. Yeah. Hi, Druss, how are you? Chris is saying we should all have the same rights. Absolutely. Okay, I base my opinions straight up on two little principles. One, treat others how you would expect to be treated. There is a clause on that at the bottom in brackets that says unless they vote Tory. Okay, that's fair. I don't think that that's a bad thing. And it's not like I'm going to throat punch them or anything like that because they're Tory. It's simply because I'll just nod my head and not engage in conversation. I need to. I've got friends that are conservative voters, but they're not Tories. They believe in old-fashioned conservative values, and they don't believe in the Tory party of today at all. Moving down, Morgan saying that's cool. Support human rights and a patriarchal society. Yep, lots of good things. I am trans non-binary. I use women's toilets whenever I've been out. I've been misgendered going through the men's loos at the cinema as a man because I look more feminine. Love you, Grant. Really do. Okay. Right. Well, I'm telling you, they're using it as a tester for later. Yes, I completely agree with you, Patrick, on that. Absolutely. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, I hope that I still have it and I've not got rid of it. Yes, there it is there. Brilliant. We are going to have a quick look at some of what the world's saying, basically, and what other people are saying across social media about this, because I don't really spend a lot of time doing that sort of thing, and we're more than halfway through today's show, and it's hitting midnight, but like I said, we've got a lot of things that we needed to get through for this. So basically, Nicola Sturgeon, our First Minister, shared a thread on Twitter. Okay, I'm going to bring that up in a second. By Lord Charlie Falconer, who served as Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice under Tony Blair, in which he concludes that the UK government's reasoning for blocking gender reform in Scotland did not justify the use of a Section 30 order. Now, let me just quickly get to the right place. Hopefully this brings up the right one. Yep, there we go. Excellent. Now, can we still see me in the corner? Yeah, we still got the chat up. That's cool. Okay, so we'll briefly go through the main points of this because it's quite long. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the Section 35 Statement of Reasons has now been published. It identifies 3 sets of reasons why the Secretary of State considers the GRR bill would have had an adverse effects on the operation of reserved matter. So we've gone through them all anyway. He starts talking straight away, first of all, because the Scottish GRC will only be recognised in Scotland, and therefore someone could be one gender in Scotland and another in the rest of the UK. This could lead to administrative difficulties, for example, the administration of benefits. Maybe the rest of the UK should catch up. The administrative difficulty, obviously, are balanced against the benefits. This is what I was saying, to be obtained to the trans community in having a much easier access to GRCs. The level of administrative difficulty will depend on the increased number of Scottish GRCs being issued. That makes sense. Scottish ministers are estimated there will be an annual increase from 30 to 250 to 300. The figure is uncertain, but the country with the closest system to GRR has an average of 550 a year. Even taking the figure of 550, the administrative difficulties are minimal. You've got to remember, Westminster are a bit backward with things, and our systems are pretty shit. In the event the nuclear option S35 couldn't reasonably be triggered by the administrative inconvenience, which would be unlikely to apply in most cases. It's just like what I said, if a computer glitch, fuck's sake, man, fuck's sake, Jesus. The second category of adverse effects is a statement of reasons. It says is an increased risk to fraudulent applications, but in the context of 525 applications, the vast majority of those are likely to be genuine. I agree with that. The authorities can monitor applications from the Chief Constable. It's is able to inform the Registrar General of any person respect of who they make a sexual protection order application. So the Registrar General will not grant a GRC. The risk of fraud does it possibly justify? Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier on. If you've got like something on your file that says you're like a dodgy sexual person, you've got a sexual protection. Let's just do it, or call it by its name, a sexual protection order. Okay, you're not going to get a GRC. Right, simple as that. Statement of reasons identifies particular concern about bad actors being able to get a GRC and trying to circumvent safe spaces, exclusions set up legitimately under the Equality Act. but the fact that a person has a GRC does not prevent their exclusion from a safe place. Those providing safe places will be aware of the conditions for a Scottish GRC and can require more protections for those with Scottish GRCs if appropriate. The final category of adverse effects in the Statement of Reasons is said to be in relation with the operation of the Equality Act, 4 of which effects are said to already exist, but will be made worse, and 1, the effect on admissions to single-sex schools, is said to be new. One of the effects said would be worse was only one of any real significance is concerning associations. There is no exclusion with the Equality Act, which would allow a single-sex association to exclude a person with. Okay, the possibility of some of proportion of an extra 525 applicants seeking to join such an association seems utterly unsustainable for a basis of a Section 35. Finally, the new asserted adverse effects under the Equality Act, namely the effect on single-sex schools and a single-sex school in Scotland, could not refuse entry to a person with a GRC in the gender of the school. Fancy that then. The school could refuse entry if separately from gender reassignment there were grounds for refusal, and this obviously would only apply to people of school age. There we go. And he finishes up at the bottom here saying the Statement of Reasons does not justify the use of a Section 35. Yeah. Next little bit. Okay, this is an article from the National. Europeans condemn UK attack on Scottish devolution. The European Free Alliance, a political organisation, constituted of various nationalist and regionalist and autonomous parties across Europe, said that the UK government's move to block gender reform legislation, which was overwhelmingly passed in Scottish Parliament before Christmas, was a direct attack on devolution. The FA represents 43 parties across the EU and features 10 MEPs within its ranks. Its statement released online, the group says the UK should avoid using its powers to create conflict with devolved parliaments. They said IFA, being the Party for Democracy, Self-Determination and Equality, believes that such a move is a direct attack on the autonomy afforded to Scotland through the Scotland Act. States should not abuse their constitutional powers to create conflict over political differences. It's nice to see something from Europe doing that. Also, we'll just move on more in the national. This is how the world media covered Westminster blocking the Holyrood gender reform. So, USA New York Times sent a breaking news alert out on Monday evening telling some 8.6 million digital subscribers about Alistair Jack's decision. It said the UK government blocks Scottish law making gender change easier. It's a lot of people that are watching, Westminster, and I don't think they realise what pricks they actually look on this. Especially when you've got 8.6 million people there, there's going to be a chunk of them that are trans, and they'll look at that, and there'll be a chunk of them that will probably go with it and start talking about it. Crazy. Wall Street Journal pointed out to the long-term ramifications for independence debate on the report. I don't think that there's long-term ramifications apart from people that believe that the union's still going to be here in a couple of years. This just pushes us more into a corner about stuff, doesn't it, really? CNN's in-depth report dived thoroughly into gender law, the political background, the Scottish and the UK government's arguments, and what will come next. The report quoted Nicola Sturgeon calling on the interventions a full frontal attack on our democratically elected Scottish Parliament. These are the words the international community actually need to hear. In Spain, their fourth highest circulating paper described Prime Minister Rishi Sunak pressing the nuclear button, blocking the trans law approved by a very large majority of the Parliament in Edinburgh from a trench in Downing Street. I like that. Rishi, he's so short he wouldn't be able to see over the trench. That's probably why he's in there. Unbelievable. But that's nice, good language. Rishi Sunak pressing the nuclear button, blocking trans law approved by a very large majority of Scottish MSPs. Yes. In Germany, Der Spiegel. I love that name of that paper, Der Spiegel. I don't even know what it means. Does it mean the speak? I don't know. No, that's Sprachen, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, what does Spiegel mean? Any German speakers here? Tell me what Der Spiegel means. Right, anyway, Germany's largest news website, readers were told that the Gender Recognition Reform Bill was considered the most controversial piece of legislation in the 24-year history of Holyrood, and that the conflict is likely to exacerbate tensions between London and Edinburgh. Couldn't get any fucking worse, could it? Well, it could, yeah. Well, it did that. Denmark's biggest newspaper, which is the oldest, also among the oldest in the world, also told its readers that a legal challenge put forward by Jack is expected to lead to an intense political legal showdown between the two governments. Italian news publication with a daily circulation of more than 300,000 focus on the controversy fueled by J.K. Rowling and groups that supported her by quoting their argument to describe the reform in its headline as dangerous for women. Le Monde in France, one of the top French newspapers, said that Jack's Section 35 order ratchets up London's tense relations with the Scottish Government, especially after the Supreme Court judgment. The world's watching, eh? It really is. It's watching and it's making its mind up. Der Spiegel is the mirror. Thank you, Morgan. That's really good of you. Right, okay. Where are we now? Oh, I've got another video. Right, so next video is actually from the LGBTQ community, interviewed outside of Holyrood. And it's quite interesting. Have a wee watch.
I'm livid, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I feel betrayed.
So when I heard the statement yesterday, I was very angry. I think it's an outrageous move on behalf of the UK government. It is an attack on devolution. I think it says something very troubling about the UK government's approach to Scotland, to our lawmaking ability and our right actually to make laws in devolved issues. But most importantly, actually, I think it's an appalling weaponisation of the lives of trans people, and that fundamentally is the most despicable element of all of this.
And obviously Alistair Jack is the Scottish Secretary who has made this decision and has moved the Section 35 order. So if you could say anything to Alistair Jack right now, what would you say?
I'd say that you, of all people, should know the facts. Know that this doesn't truly pose a risk to women and girls. Stop using us as political pawns. Stop, please. This sucks.
Stop what you're doing. Stop betraying trans people. Stop betraying Scottish democracy. What you're doing, Alistair Jack, is wrong, and it won't stop there. We all know this. Once you've gone after trans people, you'll go back and go after women's rights. This is not what you need to do. You need to be more compassionate, like Rishi Sunak said when he first became Prime Minister, that this will be a compassionate government. Well, prove that statement right, but please stop what you're doing, because you're literally hurting the precious union that you love so much.
Yeah, you're hurting the precious union that you love so much, but they don't see it that way. They don't give a toss. One bit. I was laughing there because what would you like to say to Alistair Jack just now? And immediately a whole wither of profanities came into my head about the whole thing there. Have you changed across to Livy? Brilliant. I'm so happy you've done that. Now listen, Livy, you need to get yourself onto Discord, okay? Join that community, come and speak to us, come and join in the chat there, because we do have, for those that are still watching, there's people that have managed to get this far in with it all, we do have a spectacular Discord community. There's a lot of people here that are in it. I'm very proud to be part of it. They're all good people. I had 2 new members join today, both friends of mine, one from TikTok, one from in real life, and they both joined and they're now on the approved list as well, because I know them both personally. So to join our little community on Discord, first of all, you need to be pro-independence and we need to verify you. So you need to go and get yourself a Discord account. That's the first thing. You then need to send me a direct message either on Instagram or Twitter with that name, so I can verify your Twitter or your Instagram account. So you need to have a picture on that account. It needs to be active, and I need to then have a wee video chat with you when you come into Discord before you get into the members area, just so I can make sure everything matches up. Now, that might seem like a lot of hoops to jump through, but I protect my community as best as possible from any toxic outside influences. I believe in them, I like them, I want them to have a safe space to come and speak and be themselves. That's all it's about. So if you're not prepared to jump through the hoops, then that's fine, it's your choice. But just remember, it's our choice to have this little gang hut. Funnily enough, on TikTok, I've been accused of, wait for this being a cult. Somebody's taken a piece of one of my TikToks, dissected it and stuck it on and mocked me. I just wanted to thank that person if they're sitting here in the chat, because you drove a whole load of traffic to my TikTok by doing that. And please do take lives from here, dissect them, mock me, take the mickey out of me. You do me no harm by doing such things. And I will continue to have my little clubhouse. If you feel a wee bit like left out, well, don't be such a prick, simply. Okay, anyway, let's get on with my conclusions for tonight. Oh my goodness, we're just about done. Can you believe that? 12:15. What a long live. So, my conclusions. They're very simple. There is truly not a good reason for preventing royal assent of this bill, and love it or hate it, the GRR bill has now been used as a political tool by Westminster. The assault of Scotland's democracy again should concern people on both sides of the debate, because what rights will Westminster be coming for next? I think they'll come for human rights. Oh no. There's nothing planned to change the Human Rights Act into a British Bill of Rights where so many different things change. No. There's no plans to do that. What about your working rights? Do you think they'll come after the workers' rights? I don't think there's any plans to change anything with workers' rights this year, but I think on the 1st of January next year, there's a whole bunch of them that are going to be taken away. What about your right to protest peacefully? They're not going to go after them, surely not. Because we can trust Westminster to do the right thing. There's no pattern of dystopic behaviour here whatsoever. So listen, in my opinion, a Section 30 is, as I said earlier on, with a little bit more passion, but I've calmed down now, is a public flexing of Westminster power over devolution to show Scotland where its place truly is. So let me ask you this. Are we going to sit back here and let this happen? Or are we going to do something about it? Because right now, okay, if we are to remain in this union, regardless of this particular bill, and there's going to be people that turn around and say, I had to go to the union to get protection. Well, you're just being silly. You're being silly because we've talked about all these things tonight, and we still can't see in this bill where women's and girls' rights are taken away. It seems to be a bit of nonsense, all right? If somebody can prove to me on that bill where it takes away women's rights, okay, where it actually says this, where it actually demeans women, I'm quite interested to hear that clause. You know how to get in touch with me. You can send me a DM, you can do anything, but I'm not going to engage with opinion, because opinion's formed through propaganda for these sort of things, and then it just kind of snowballs and goes on and on and on and on, and it's not the right thing. So like tonight, I've given access, I've put links up, okay, saying this is the bill, this is what the government says, this is everything, and everything's verifiable, which I've put up here, okay? That's facts. And then we've looked at learned people's opinions, like Lord Falconer, okay? and he's not an asshole. Maybe back in the day he was, but he's an academic as well, and we may not like him because he's in the House of Lords, but at least he's sort of like taking a step back and being sensible with it all, you know. Good night, Kieran. Okay, but that's it for that there. I think I've got one more video. Did I write it down here? Which video did we get up to before? Was it 6 or 7? I don't know. We're going to push it. We're going to push 7 and see what happens, and then I'll push 8. It might be the same one as before. I think 7's the same one as before. Hold on. No, it's not. This is the one. This is the one.
Hate crime.
Right, hold on.
My trans siblings will be horrified and terrified.
Right. Okay. So let me just say just now, right, that this video, I'm going to rewind it. All right. This video here, you need to watch how ridiculous Alistair Jack is. All right. You really need to, because he looks like a proper dick. He does not know how to answer this question. This was tonight at the debate in the Commons about the GRRB. Okay, let's watch it, and it's a good thing because it just shows his true colours and how incapable he is of actually being reasonable or having reason or understanding what the Gender Recognition and Reform Bill actually is.
Of rising hate crime, my trans siblings will be horrified and terrified at the level of misinformation and lies in this chamber today. Given that the Secretary of State has had lots of legal advice on this, presumably he's also had briefings on this, could he tell us what is the effect of a gender recognition certificate? What does it entitle someone to do?
Here we go. Watch this.
Well, we believe we believe you'll see in the legals in the statement of reasons that there is a reduction. I make this very point very clear. There is a reduction in safeguards for women and children, and you will have plenty of time to read that today.
Dick, what an utter dick. An hour and 20 minutes live. Listen, if you've made it from beginning to end now, I really thank you for being here. It's been a long night, and I feel better for getting all this off my chest. I feel better for putting it out on the internet. If you're new here and you've not been here, please put a like on this live. Okay, really, really important to like this live, because this isn't like, oh, I'm asking for likes, stroke my ego because I want to have the likes, okay? We're a tiny channel with a limited reach. However, if I go just now, I'm going to quickly look at some of the stats. We're beginning to get a bit more powerful with what we actually get to do here. Okay, like for instance that, I'm going to put the Rishi Sunak, if Chris is still here, I'm going to put the Rishi Sunak video in the chit chat there. But that particular video now, and I'm really pleased to say, it's had over 1,100 views with the Rishi Sunak interview and my commentary on it. And that's a big deal for me, simply because we're getting the message out to people. So this isn't about I've got 1,000 subscribers and I'm flexing and I've got an ego. This isn't about I've got 10 likes or whatever. This is purely about getting the message out about independence and holding Westminster to account in my unique fashion and way. So please, please, please give the videos a like, share them, okay? See the Rishi Sunak one? Share that amongst all your Facebook independence things. Ask people, say, look, share this to a no voter. Let it become controversial. Let it become critical. Share this live with people after it's like, you know, downloaded and is sitting there. They stay on forever. It's now part of the internet. It's kind of important to do these sort of things, because at the end of the day, we don't have a massive propaganda machine. We don't have the ability to compete directly with the Daily Mail as such. And no, they're a shit paper, they really are. But we don't have the ability to do that. We only have you guys doing this and helping. So the only way is for you to step back and think, right, I'm going to share a crap load of my favourite independence creators. And by doing that, okay, I mean, my target audience is you guys, the Yes community, okay, because you know more people than I do that are probably dithering on whether to vote yes or not. But there's things in this channel that could help them decide that towards yes. So by doing things like that, you have a massive, massive impact, not on my ego, but the ability to change people's minds. So that's it. Let me quickly, where is it? Get a shareable link. There we go. This is, if Chris is still in the chat, that is the Rishi Sunak video. Everybody's welcome to grab that and share it as well. But we're done. Oh, that was a long live. Where is the end button? There it is. Listen, if you're part of the Discord community, I'm going to be jumping on there for at least 20 minutes just to unwind. If you want to be part of the Discord community, get in contact. Download Discord, send me your Discord name. Livy, if you want to join it, you don't need to jump through any hoops. You just get in touch and we'll get you in there. All right? Thank you, everybody, for spending some time with me tonight and letting me get things on. Okay? I'm proud to be part of this community.